Welcome to the Late Night Race Review.
The Miami Grand Prix is underway. Kimi Antonelli crawling off the line. Charles Leclerc is going through to the lead. No, Max Verstappen got it. Antonelli goes wide. Who's got the launch? It's Charles Leclerc. It does spin. It's a spin for Max Verstappen. Can the pack avoid him? The Ferrari leads. Antonelli went wide. Max Verstappen spun. And Charles Leclerc takes the lead of the Grand Prix. What a dramatic getaway we've had here. It's Leclerc, then Antonelli, Norris, Piastri and Russell the top five. And it's 3 Grand Prix victories in a row for Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli wins the Miami Grand Prix. Russell closing in. He gets by at the final corner.
Contact.
Very close to contact. Russell tries to get the power down. He gets past. He goes through, and George Russell takes 4th place with a damaged front wing. Can the Ferrari get there, or will it be Verstappen? Verstappen takes 5th on the line, and Charles Leclerc goes from the podium to 6th place.
Get in there, Kimi. Had to work for that one today, mate. But what a great drive.
Yes! Woo! Man, what a race! What a race, man! Woo!
Make sure to stick around as we wrap up the episode with our predictions game and take a look at our F1 Fantasy League. And don't forget to support the podcast by clicking those like, follow and subscribe buttons. Welcome on back to the Late Night Race Review. My name is Aidan Scott, and joining me this evening as always is Isidro Gonçalves and Damien Scott. Chaps, it's definitely been a while. How are you keeping?
Good, like the meme of the old lady, it's been 84 years.
Do you know what, Isidro? You literally stole what I was going to say next. I was going to say, insert Titanic old lady meme. Damien, what about yourself? How are you keeping?
Yeah, good. The gap has felt longer than it should have. So yeah, great to have a race back, and great to see Miami. Miami is one I always love. I think people are starting to get the Miami love now after a few years of it being established. So yeah, it was good to get back.
Yeah, it was kind of hit and miss when, not saying hit and miss, I think that's too harsh of a word to use, or a string of words to use for Miami when it first kicked off. I just think, like, compared to other sort of tracks, I don't think Miami kind of hit it off as well as what it's hitting off now. I think like definitely Miami has grown on me in a big way now. But again, as I just said there, Isidro just literally stole my next line that I was actually going to say. Just ruined the joke, ruined the intro, Isidro. Might as well just feckin' move into the whole thing. I'm way joking.
I think Miami has more love because it's been 2 races off the calendar. So whatever comes, it's good. So
yeah.
That's why there's Miami love. It's the absence of races that brings Miami. Oh, so nice.
It's so nice they did it twice because it was a sprint and a race. I think, to be honest, chaps, though, I think it would have been a case we would have taken anything after this 4-week break. We would have taken Monaco if it was that was the case, you know. I'm not throwing shade at Monaco. We're not going to get into that conversation here. But anyway, folks, look, after what felt like 84 years since we last sat down and watched a Formula 1 race, we finally arrived at round 4 of the Formula 1 season for the Miami Grand Prix. But not only did we get a Grand Prix, we also did get a sprint race. So double the action to ease us back in after that long 4-week break. Chaps, there's absolutely a lot to cover here, because not only did the 4-week break give all of the teams a chance to go back to the drawing board and figure out all the issues from the past 3 races, the FIA also found some time to sit down with everybody and figure out not only the whole super clipping issue, but it seems also a good few problems that the teams are having overall. And I actually can't believe I'm about to say this. I think I'm going to get sick to my mouth. But they actually made it work, because from what I feel, from what we've seen from that sort of weekend, the action from the sprint race and the actual Grand Prix, I think it did actually work. I think it's definitely, you know, there was a lot more action compared to, like, I know obviously in the first 3 races there was action, but I think in terms of the drivers and, you know, reacting to the car and everything, I think just it's definitely a step forward. there was a lot more action. The cars looked super quick on track. And even the biggest critic of these entire regulations, Mr. Max Verstappen, actually said that he feels more comfortable in the car. So honestly, chaps, I think we're actually on the right track here. See what I did there? Right track? Because they all race around on a track.
Stop it.
I'll leave the dad jokes to you, David. But anyway, chaps, let's get into the meat and bones of this weekend, the Grand Prix. And don't worry, folks, we'll make sure to raise some of the key takes from the sprint race while we do this. But kicking it off, and this first section of the Grand Prix, there was so much that happened. From those red lights going out to that point when we got that safety car, there was so much going on. I couldn't keep up with it. Like, I was taking notes as soon as the lights went out, and I was like, oh, hopefully, a little bit of action down into turn one. But holy shit, that was one of the most chaotic starts, brilliant starts that I've seen in Formula One. First of all, we had Charles getting by Kimi, because Kimi, again, bogged down at the very start. I don't know if those guys can get a handle on those race starts when it comes to Merc. But then also as well, we had Verstappen spinning at turn 2. And I have to say, what a save from Verstappen. That complete 360 and just all the cars just not managing to hit him and him not hitting the cars. That was a great save. We also had Kimi going off the track at turn 1. Then we had that Colapinto going into Lewis Hamilton incident. And then also as well, and as I just mentioned a little bit earlier, Verstappen a little bit more comfortable with the car, him actually fighting back through the pack to try and get back up into the top 10. That was an amazing watch. But then after that, we had Antonelli getting back into P1. I think it was by lap 3 or 4. Then again, Charles retook the lead on the back straight, just coming back down into turn 17. But during that lap, we had Isaac Hadjar on lap 5 clipping the wall at the chicane, which brought out the safety car. It brought all the chaos to a bit of a pause, and everyone could kind of, get back in order, and we can kind of get a little bit of, a little bit calm and collected and get everything back in order. But then we had Gasly into the wall at turn 17, because we had Lawson, Mr. King Dick, T-boning Gasly and flipping that car completely over and straight into the wall. Thankfully, Gasly was okay. But yeah, that was Lawson and Gasly out. Lads, there was so much that happened in those first 5 to 6 laps of that race. It was absolutely brilliant. But I have a couple of questions. First of all, during all of that chaos, should Colapinto have received a penalty? Isidro, I'm going to ask you first. Should Colapinto have received a penalty for that incident with Hamilton?
No, that was just part of the race. I don't see anything wrong about that.
Really, I like the question I want to throw to you, and Damien, I'm going to ask you as well. But the thing I want to throw to you is that he went into the side of Hamilton. He forced him off track. Should he not have gotten a penalty for that? Like, I know, look, rubbing is racing, and I love seeing, a little bit of action, wheel to wheel racing and stuff like that. But like, he almost took off a quarter of his car in the process as well.
That's a bit far-fetched, quarter of a car. Yeah, there was a bit, and he did end up losing performance, but I don't think would be worth it a 5-second or 10-second penalty. I'd say it's more of an incident, especially it's been far too long. So
yeah, I can see it from that point of view. Damien, I don't know if there's any point in asking you, because I know your point on this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Should Colapinto he had received a penalty?
Here comes the hate.
No. All good. I actually saw some onboard video afterwards, and I don't think it was televised, but a couple of corners later, Hamilton was flipping the finger at Colapinto when he eventually got past. And I think that kind of says it all. It was a nice little battle. Colapinto was ahead going into the corner, and he might have drifted out a little bit, but I think it was a ballsy move from Colapinto, and that's what we like to see. Some aggressive but fair driving, and I think it's all good. Work away.
Yeah, but then on the flip side of that, I'm going to throw this question to both of you guys. Should it be a case that Lawson should receive a penalty for the Gasly incident? Because it was bigger and it was more, crazy than what happened with Hamilton, but you kind of have to look at the scenarios here, right? So we had Crofty and Martin Brundle and Ted Kravitz all saying that more than likely Lawson's going to get a penalty for Canada. I'm not 100% certain if that actually went through. I didn't see the news on that yet. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But there was all this talk that Lawson has to get a penalty. Lawson has to get a penalty. But in my view, I feel that those were kind of the same scenarios because, first of all, like Damien mentioned there, that, yeah, look, Colapinto, he went off track or had a bit of a moment and he went into the side of Hamilton. Again, they both went off track. He forced him off track and he took off about a quarter of his car. But then with the Lawson incident, it was quite literally sort of the same thing. Like Lawson, he had a lockup, he had a moment, and he hit Gasly, and Gasly flipped, and then, yeah, he DNF'd. But realistically, should Lawson receive a penalty if the Colapinto situation was a racing incident? What do you guys think? Isidro, I'll throw it to you first.
No, I think Lawson was not was a Berlin incident. He had no fault whatsoever. The car just kind of, he had no control over it. I was watching through the F1 TV and they said that straight away from the onboard camera. There was nothing Lawson could do to avoid that. And the fact that even Lawson apologized to Pierre about that because it was not something. If it was Paris, we could think about Lawson, but he is innocent in this. Luckily for Pierre, that nothing wrong or nothing worse happened to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an incident. There was nothing that Lawson could do. He tried his best to avoid Gasly.
Yeah, because as shocking as this sounds, chaps, I'm actually on the side of Lawson with this one because 100% that was a complete incident. But Damien, I'll throw it back to you as well. What do you think about that? Should Lawson receive a penalty for that incident, considering what we've mentioned about Colapinto?
No, and I just rewatched the little replay clip of it there just as you were speaking, and yeah, I think even after the race he said it was a gearbox or a mechanical issue, and you could actually see the direction of the car. It kind of turned a little bit left. You know, if he was actually trying to take the corner, there'd be a lot of left, and he literally kind of went straight. So, yeah, he locked up. It was a mechanical issue. I don't think it was intentional, and I think the flip made it look a little bit more spectacular than that actually was. But you know, obviously, safety is always the main concern when it comes to penalties and these kind of issues, but I think I'd be okay with no penalty for Canada for this one. You know, sometimes these things happen.
Yeah.
If somebody takes somebody out intentionally, then yeah, obviously, you know, throw the book at them, but I think I'm okay with that one.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with you on that one. I know that's mad. You know, people are probably going, Jesus, that 4-week break did you well, Aidan. Agreeing with everybody and on the side of Liam Lawson. Don't worry. I'm the same old Aidan. But in this instance, as I was saying there, yes, with the whole Colapinto Hamilton thing, this is why I'm asking this question to both of you. If he didn't receive a penalty, should Lawson have received the same one? And if the FIA decide, yeah, we're going to give him a grid penalty for Canada, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. That's going to be a massive fumble from the FIA's perspective when it comes to that stewarding there. But anyway, look, we could debate about that and talk about it, until the cows come home. But we're going to move on. As frustrating as, the first five, or well, by lap 5 for a lot of people was when it comes to, Gasly and Lawson and Hadjar and all that kind of stuff. There was a lot of tears within the first couple of laps. One team in particular that I think, even though, yes, they are the championship leaders and they're doing really, really well. And yeah, it's great to have a great car this season and stuff like that. But Mercedes, they do have a lot of frustrations. And I think it was, when we look at all the upgrades that every team had kind of brought this weekend, now not every team had brought upgrades. There was, the big teams. We had McLaren, we had Ferrari, Red Bull, all this kind of stuff. I think especially when it comes to those race starts, Mercedes just really, really can't get that down. There seems to be some issue there that they just, I don't know if it's during the formation lap, the battery or whatever it is, but I think, when it comes to Mercedes, if they keep on going the way that they're going, this is in my own opinion, like, if they can't get this sort of situation, the race start sort of thing under control, I think this is going to be a very, very difficult championship for Mercedes, because this has been the first time, since 2021? No, 2020, since Mercedes have had, 2021, sorry, the whole Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, since they had a chance of winning an F1 championship again. And they have a perfect opportunity to do this. And I feel that regardless of, mistakes that Kimi might make or Russell might make, this whole race start thing, it's really compromising them big time for the first sort of stint of that race, because a lot can happen within the first stint. But obviously, look, there's two great drivers in that team. Again, Kimi Antonelli, championship leader at the moment, and of course George Russell. I hate to give George Russell credit, but you know, he's up there and he's in Mercedes for a reason. But you know, as we even seen by lap 4, Kimi Antonelli had a terrible start again. You know, even in the sprint race and also in the Grand Prix, he was back in P1 by lap 4. And now I know obviously Charles, he retook P1 on the back straight. But I think this weekend more so, Russell was the main highlight of this weekend in Mercedes. He had a lot of frustrations. I don't know if it's a case of, you know, maybe him and Miami just don't mix and he's just not really, that's just not really a track that he's really comfortable with, even though he's raced there since its inception. But Russell was under a lot of pressure, you know, not just from Piastri, he was under pressure from Hamilton, from Charles, you know, Russell, like even in qualifying and things like that, he was struggling to get pace out of that Mercedes, even though, yes, look, he was in the top 10, which is great. But for a championship winning car, which we know that it is, he was under a lot of pressure. Now, going on roughly about maybe lap 13, Kimi dropped into P2, I think it was. There was like a few pit stops, or, you know, obviously he was fighting with Lando Norris and things like that. But again, going back to Russell, like as great as that battle was, that Russell and Charles battle, you know, after the whole pit stops, coming back out, fighting through traffic, it was great to see that. And then eventually, near the end of the race, we had Russell clipping into the side of Max Verstappen, and that whole issue with the side front wing, just sparks going down the straights, round the corners. I was like, oh Jesus, this car is going to flip or explode or something like that. But yeah, like I think for Russell, even though he was consistent this weekend, because not only did he finish P4 in the Grand Prix and the sprint race, I think it was a very, very frustrating race for him anyway. But obviously, the highlight of the weekend for Mercedes was Kimi. Finishing P1 in the Grand Prix, he put on a spectacular race. He really, really put it to Lando Norris and McLaren, because McLaren, they brought a lot of big upgrades this weekend. Kimi finishing P1, and I know obviously, yeah, he finished P6 in the sprint, but, you know, with 45 points overall and Mercedes extending that lead, that is a good result. But the thing about it is, guys, and the question I want to ask for, like, Isidro, I'm going to throw this to you when it comes to Mercedes. These upgrades that were spoken about for Mercedes coming in Canada, do you think this is going to fix their race starts and actually give them a consistent sort of race pace, like from start to finish? Like, will we actually see a race after Canada with Mercedes just dominating the whole thing? You know, and then overall, what did you think of Mercedes this weekend?
I hope they don't fix the way the Mercedes is at the moment, because it's nice to see Ferrari bring some happiness for the first 500 meters.
Yeah.
And then Mercedes take over, and that's it. If Mercedes starts straight away from P1 and P2 and just dominate, I think that's not good. So I hope they fix the issues, but not the start. Let the start be as it is.
Yeah.
Which is see Leclerc just disappear in T1 and then being catch up in T2, and then that's it.
Yeah. And then as for Russell, I mean, do you think at this stage now, I know technically we are 4 races in, but do you think the pressure of Kimi is getting to him? Like, because obviously with Melbourne and stuff like
definitely.
that, you know, like Melbourne.
It's feeling the pressure. Kimi, I don't think, if instead of Kimi it was Max, it was probably the same thing. He's feeling the pressure, especially because I imagine, like most of us thought that 2026 would be Russell's year for WDC, and then suddenly you see Kimi strolling away, and suddenly he has 3 GP victories straight, and he's just he's in the shadow of Mercedes at the moment.
Yeah,
so, yeah, I think he's there's a lot of pressure because he's the most experienced driver in the Mercedes team. And the fact that he also is, he thinks that he should be the one winning all the Grand Prix so far, and that isn't happening. Even though there are issues in the car, I think there's personal problems in Russell as well. Pressure from I won't say pressure from the team, maybe pressure from the media. I don't see Toto pressuring Russell that, you should pressure Kimi. if anything, say let Kimi race because he's winning races.
Should
But
we
I
say focus, George? Focus.
Yeah, I think so. Russell should just focus and forget about Kimi. Just drive the best you can.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with that. Like, I mean, I think as well, and I could be completely missing something here when this might be a statistic or something that has already happened in my lifetime, but I feel in my lifetime watching Formula One, I haven't seen a rookie come in as fast and take control of the championship and just completely wash the floor of who's meant to be the lead driver of a team, and have this guy be under so much pressure and just causing so many slip-ups. Look, we all seen it last year when it came to McLaren with papaya rules and all this kind of stuff. But Isidro, do you think this is kind of going to be the same thing? Like, do you think it's sort of like it happens with every team? Do you think there's going to be issues that Georgia is going to have with Kimi? Are we going to see, some hairy moments between the two drivers? Like, will they have to introduce not Merc rules, but maybe Total rules or Wolfie rules?
No. This is not Zach Brown. This is Toto Wolff, and he learned his lesson from the days of Hamilton and Rosberg.
Yeah.
So Toto learned his lesson, knows what to do. Not like unlikely Zach Brown kind of thing happening with Mercedes. Toto knows what to do, and I'm pretty sure if it comes to that, it'll be Kimi first and Russell just help him.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully that's how it goes. But personally, I foresee a few blunders along the way. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but I don't know. I'll definitely be watching out for little things like that. But look, great weekend for Mercedes to pick up 45 points and still remain in P1 in the championship. But moving on, and obviously the team that we haven't really spoken about in a big way. Now, we did talk about them in Japan because yes, they had some good performance with Piastri, and Lando was somewhat there as well. But McLaren, guys, am I too early to say McLaren are back? Because they brought some big upgrades this weekend. I mean, first of all, right out of the gate, Miami, I think Miami suits McLaren in a big way. Now, yes, last year, different set of regulations, completely different cars. McLaren, I think Miami is always good to McLaren. And I know going back to like 2023, they had difficulty and, yes, they were just a completely different team back then. But I feel like over the last several years, Miami has been a great track, and especially for Lando Norris. I mean, straight out of the gate, talking about the sprint race, Lando winning the sprint race, putting in some great lap times when it comes to qualifying. Him taking away 8 points from the sprint, and then also Piastri coming in P2, taking 7 points as well. But the thing about it is, even though, yes, McLaren, they obviously brought a lot of good upgrades, that car is definitely up there now fighting with the big dogs at McLaren with Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull and stuff like that. It's weird to actually say that Red Bull are now starting to fight as well. But I sort of feel, and I could be wrong in saying this, I don't know if you guys you guys agree with me on this one, but during the Grand Prix, I sort of felt that when it came to Lando, like, even though, it was great, he got into P1, and yes, sometimes he was down in P2, and there was a few battles here and there and things like that. But even near the end, that sort of end stint of the race, I sort of feel that Lando was playing it way too safe. Like, I know obviously, yes, he was trying to catch on Kimi, and he was doing a really, really good job to sort of stay within sort of 0.8 to almost a second of Kimi for a good couple of laps. But it sort of felt like, even for the last sort of maybe 10 laps, it sort of felt like it just felt either his pace dropped off, or he was just trying to play it way too safe to try and regain some good temperature, or, look after his tires, whatever. But I feel like it was just, he played it way too safe. Or it could just be a case that Kimi is just that good with this car. Like, he is just that strong. But like, one of the things that I obviously, that I seen during the race, like, I mean, as I said there, Norris taking P1 from Charles after a lap or two after the safety car, he really did well to maintain that. But then obviously on that first sort of set of pit stops when Kimi came in, McLaren had to answer that to try and keep Lando out in the lead. But unfortunately, Kimi taken P1 at turn 1, and we all thought, oh my God, this is going to be a great battle, but Kimi just kind of took off there. And yes, Lando was trying to come back, and as I was saying there, he kind of stayed within 8 to maybe 0.8 of a second to a second within Kimi, but he just really didn't have an answer for him. Like Martin Brundle every couple of minutes was like, yeah, Lando just doesn't have an answer for him, even though he is the reigning world champion. But at the end of the day, yes, look, Lando, he did come there in P2. But on the flip side of that, it was great to see Piastri fighting with the likes of Charles, fighting with Russell, Hamilton, all those cars. It was great to see that battle, because at one stage, you know, there was Verstappen was in the mix, and, you know, eventually when he was by Russell and he was by Verstappen, the last sort of couple of laps was between him and Charles. Now, obviously, you know, going into turn 1 there, I think it was lap 56, I think it was. Yeah, 56 or whatever it was. He goes into turn 1, overtakes Charles. From my perspective, it literally looked like Mario Kart. He just threw a banana peel out the back of his car and Charles just went spinning around. Now, obviously, bad news for Charles, and we'll get on to Ferrari in a little bit. But after that, he just took off, and that he was like, thank you, I'll take that P3, thank you very much. But yeah, it finally finished up with Lando in P2 and Piastri in P3, and I think 48 points overall for McLaren. That was a huge chunk of points that they needed to stay in contention for the championship, even though, yeah, it's still early days, but we're down 2 races now and we still have a long way to go, and a lot can happen between now and the final race. But that has moved McLaren up into P3 in the championship with 94 points. Damien, I mean, that was a great comeback from McLaren, and it was great because I was getting... You know, I was getting to this stage where I was like, oh no, is this now McLaren going back to what they were back in 2020, 2021? Are we just, is this McLaren going to drop off the face of the earth now? Like, come on, we already had Lando as a championship winner. All this hype now just gone. But it was great to see them come back. But what did you think of McLaren overall this weekend?
Yeah, it was clear they weren't ready when the season started. Australia, was it Australia where Piastri crashed out even before the race started? That was Australia, wasn't it?
That was Australia,
Then they didn't even make the starting grid for China. So yeah, clearly there wasn't something right there. I think they had those issues they had some interface issue between the power unit and the battery. That's why they didn't even start China. So yeah, there were some gremlins in the system, but when they got back to Japan, they seemed to kind of, you know, find their feet a little. It was a kind of solid enough performance. They did a P2 for Piastri and a P5 for Norris. And yeah, the upgrades that they've brought in now, with the few weeks we've had off, have just kind of, you know, kicked out any of the gremlins that were remaining, and it was a pretty solid race. I think what they needed to do was just, you know, do well in the sprint, do well in the race. You know, if we get the win, great. It was just to have finish both races and get good points in both races. And I think they ticked the boxes all weekend on that. And yeah, as you said there, the last kind of 10 laps, Norris wasn't really pushing, probably a tire issue. He was undercut by Antonelli on the pit stop by 1 or 2 laps, I think it was. Mercedes got that right, and I think that was probably the difference at the end of the day. But yeah, clearly he was probably managing his tires, I think. So I think
But do you think he played it too safe though?
I think second is fine, you know. For a team that was way behind, obviously because of the issues that they had, they just needed to get a good solid bunch of points on the board and get back into the title race. And you know, I think that was good management by Zach Bryan, if that's exactly, you know, what he did say. We're obviously guessing there a little bit, but if I was in his shoes, I'd probably do the same thing. Get the win if we can, but you know, let's consolidate. And as you said, what was it, 45 points they scored this weekend?
48 overall.
48. So
yeah,
that's brought them right back into things. So I think that's good enough for them. And they were competitive enough. You know, they were in the mix. There were some good battles, you know, and they had some good overtakes throughout the race. So I think good job over the weekend really for McLaren, and they're back essentially in the running. Looked very much like Mercedes running away with things. obviously with the races where they didn't even start and they couldn't score points, there's a bit of a handicap there in terms of they're behind, a good chunk at this stage. Many points behind are they? Probably like 100 or something like that. So they've got a good gap to make up. So I think good overall weekend for them. Wrap it up and move on to the next one now for Canada, which they also like as well. Even though I think is that where Norris ran into the back of Piastri last year. But the less said about that, the better. But good job overall. They'll be happy enough with that, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for a lot of people in the fantasy league, and especially for us in the predictions game, we definitely did not have McLaren on our bingo cards to come back and, put on a massive performance like they did. But it's good. Hopefully they can keep it up and hopefully they can be consistent, because that's one of the things that a lot of people just absolutely despise about Formula One, when just one team at the start of a new set of regulations just runs away with it and everybody else is just left watching what else is going on in the midfield or second and third and stuff like that. But to actually see these teams bring these upgrades and they actually work and they're actually putting it to the big teams, that's what we want to see. We want to see that close battle in there. We want to see teams very close together in the championship. We just don't want this massive gap with somebody in first and somebody in second, and then it's like, oh well, okay, well, we know this team's going to win, so we know what the ending's going to be. It's good to see this kind of performance, and especially with McLaren, but hopefully I'm not too premature saying McLaren are back. Hopefully Canada doesn't come back and repeat from last year for them, but I think they've definitely learned their mistakes from last season anyway. But moving on to the next team, and it's a little bit upsetting, but at the same time too, it's literally like deja vu for me when it comes to Ferrari, because with every season for Ferrari, the start of it's good. It starts off good, like Melbourne, China and Japan and whatever, but then usually by the third or fourth race, shit just starts to absolutely fly everywhere when it comes to Ferrari. I'm calling this section, Isidro, a tale of two woes for Ferrari, because yes, okay, the sprint race was good for Charles and Hamilton. Yeah, even though he did finish P7, Charles did finish P3. They came away with 8 points from the sprint race. Also as well, look, it was good to see that rotisserie wing, or the Macarena wing as they call it, actually put into play here and actually use it for the Miami race. But oh my god, it was just like, it was great to see the pace the Ferrari had during the main race, like having Charles leading the race and in P1 there for a good couple of laps. Apologies. But to actually see that performance slip away as I might be too aggressive when I say this, but to see it slip away as quickly as it did, I mean, Charles, he didn't have an answer for Lando behind him. He didn't have an answer for Kimi. He just could not create enough of a gap between the two cars. And then once Lando got by him, and then once Kimi got by him, it was just he started to slip away, and then eventually it was Russell, and he was just running into all these problems. Now, of course, yeah, we had the issue with Hamilton and Colapinto, and of course that just lost him a huge amount of downforce. So obviously this weekend for Hamilton, it just wasn't good. I'm not saying it wasn't good. I'm sure it was just very frustrating for Hamilton. Yeah, he did finish P7 in the sprint race, but then he also, what was it? I think he finished, P6 in the main Grand Prix. Like, yeah, look, that's good. Difference of one position between the sprint and the Grand Prix. But I mean, when it came to Charles, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, when it came to Piastri at turn 1, it was a lap 56. Oh my God, it just went from worst to absolutely shocking, because I think also as well, we've seen a tiny little bit of the Ferrari clown pit wall coming through there when it came to pitting Charles. Like, he even said, he was like, yeah, can you guys tell me, actually have the conversation with me instead? I'm in the car. We kind of seen a little bit of that coming through. We thought it was gone this season, but hitting the wall breaking the suspension, having to nurse that car back. He was cutting corners, going back to the grid, and he ended up receiving a 20-second time penalty. 20-second time penalty to drop him all the way down to P8. Overall, 20 points for Ferrari. This was a weekend to forget for Ferrari. I think I'm right in saying that, Isidro.
I think what hit Leclerc was the Ferrari from the past, just saying, don't go away, here we come. He just hit him like a torpedo, and that's why it's spinning and hitting walls and everything.
The SF25 is just there in the back of his mind. Just
Yeah, I think we are starting seeing the Ferrari starting to become the Ferrari that everyone is used to, making mistakes, not finishing in the podiums and everything like that. I think that the first 3 races of this season, we were kind of surprised that Ferrari was doing good, no mistakes. It was nice. It was refreshing to watch. But I think now we are just coming back to a real life, to see the old Ferraris coming back.
Yeah,
I hope not, but I don't know. Let's wait for Canada to see if the real Ferrari is back.
See, that's the thing, because as I said there, it's always a case of each season. Ferrari start off great couple of races. Like, we've seen this at the start of the last series of regulations. Well, back in 2022, first race in Bahrain, we thought, oh my God, Ferrari, that battle with Charles and Max in Bahrain, that was amazing to see. We thought, oh, Ferrari are going to run away with it this season and put it to Red Bull. And yeah, no, they definitely did not achieve that whatsoever. And of course, they fell off. And then again, this season, with this set of regulations, first 3 races in, they're like, oh, this is class, Ferrari, we're finally back. And now we're just cowering away back into our caves, the Tifosi cave, as I like to call it. We're cowering back in now. But look, I really just hope this weekend was obviously just a blunder for Ferrari. It was just a mistake. There was a few mistakes made, especially when it came to those pit stop calls, and obviously things like, Colapinto driving into the side of you. That's, how can you avoid that, or how can you predict that? But I think what this has kind of been a reaction to is obviously all of these teams like McLaren and Red Bull and other teams with bringing their upgrades. The pack is now starting to close up faster than they anticipated. Like, we've seen it there for the first 3 races, Mercedes and Ferrari. We thought that was going to be the battle for the entire season, but obviously every other team didn't know what the hell was going on or what to do with their cars or why they were so off pace. But now they had 4 weeks of a break. Everyone brought their upgrades, and Ferrari are like, oh shit. Looks like it's back to P4 for us again. But look, hopefully this is just, a blunder. It's a weekend to forget, and hopefully going into Canada, hopefully they're back in fighting form, because Canada has been good for Ferrari in the past. But moving on to our next and final team, Red Bull, because yes, Red Bull, as dominant as their ground effect era season. Oh, Isidro has one more point.
Are we discussing midfield teams now?
Oh, that's a massive burn, Isidro. 4-week break and he hasn't lost it. I like it. But yeah, when it comes to Red Bull, I mean, it is weird to sort of say that for the first sort of 3 to 4 races, we were looking at Red Bull becoming a midfield team, bringing in a new power unit with Ford and all this kind of stuff. And, a lot of big changes. And obviously one of the big announcements was GP. He's now going to McLaren in, what was it, 2027 or 28 or something like that. He's going to be moving to McLaren. So there's been a lot of changes, and we've kind of thought to ourselves, oh, well, look, usually when this sort of stuff happens, they've lost Horner, they lost Newey and all this kind of stuff. We kind of thought, oh, well, like Red Bull's going to probably fade away into the midfield pack. But again, as I said there, similar to McLaren, they brought these upgrades, and holy shit, did it do it the world of wonders for that car. Because as I said at the start of the episode, the biggest critic of these regulations, Max Verstappen, has been saying that, yeah, the car feels great. It's actually doing what I want it to do. It's reacting to, my inputs and what I want it. And that's the one thing that a lot of people really wanted to see not just Max Verstappen being comfortable in his car, but drivers actually driving the car rather than this sort of artificial racing scenario that we kind of had somewhat for the first sort of 3 races. You know, we want to see drivers in control of their cars and actually doing things that puts the car to the limit and on the edge. But obviously, you know, we sort of seen that typical Max Verstappen, especially in the sprint race and even the qualifying and everything like that. He was putting in incredible laps. Now, obviously, they're still not there yet when it comes to Mercedes, but he was putting in some blistering lap times. Like he was like at one stage, you know, you could hear Crofty and Martin Brundle talking. They were like the old sort of typical Max Verstappen, not rhetoric, but the typical phrases like, oh, Super Max is back and look, Max Verstappen putting in, and you're like, oh my God, is it like 2023 again? But it is great to see that they have brought these upgrades because they have worked, you know. But I think on the flip side of that, though, during the main Grand Prix, obviously, it was tears for Hadjar. Like, oh my God, it was beyond frustrating for Hadjar. You could see him just punching the halo of the car and punching the steering wheel. He did not have a good weekend because not only did he crash out in DNF in the Grand Prix, he finished in P9 in the sprint race, picking up no points for the team. It was definitely a frustrating race or a frustrating weekend for Isaac Hadjar. But when it came to Max, you know, he picked up 5 points, or sorry, he finished in P5 and picked up 4 points in the sprint race. But the Grand Prix, you know, we kind of thought to ourselves, yeah, look, this is going to be good, longer stints. We're going to see some really good battling here. But that turn 1 incident, that complete 180 spin that he made, holy shit, that was an incredible save. And who better to do it than Max Verstappen? Because when something like that happens, he knows exactly what he's going to do with that car and he knows where to put it. But we've seen that typical Max, you know, like him fighting through the pack, getting back up into the top 10. And obviously after the safety car incident, yes, he did opt to change his tyres, which I think ultimately that was probably a big mistake to go on to the hard tyres that early. But then obviously, look, it kind of went from bad to worse, even though, yeah, it was a P16. He started after the safety car restart. It was just a case of, yeah, he did get back up in the top 10. And then eventually once Norris and Kimi pitted, he was in the lead of the race, but it just went from bad to worse. He just completely fell off because of how long he was on those hard tires. But then, of course, he had that incident with Russell near the end. And yeah, I think overall, I think the key takeaways from Max this weekend was that he can trust the car, even though it wasn't the weekend he would have wanted. I think Max is probably in a much more happier place than where he was when he was in Suzuka or China, or, you know, what we've seen kind of over the last sort of couple of races. But overall, he did finish in P5. He did pick up 10 points, and obviously he picked up 4 points from the sprint race, finishing in P5. So 14 points overall for Red Bull. It's not incredible, but it's still a chunk of points that they do need to keep on trying to put it obviously to the top teams. And it's weird to say, you know, putting it to the top teams when you're talking about Red Bull. But Damien, overall, Red Bull P4 in the championship right now on 30 points. Yeah, okay, look, they're behind McLaren. What did you think of, well, to be honest, what did you think of Max overall? I don't really think we can kind of talk about Hadjar because, you know, unfortunately, he didn't really do much this weekend.
Let's talk about Hadjar.
No, let's not, because, well, yeah, I mean, if you want to, you can. But I mean, 0 points from the sprint.
Yeah, well, you don't have to score points to be a talking point, right? But I think Red Bull were another one of these teams that obviously started the season, you know, way behind. They weren't ready from the start, and I think that was clearly evident from the first number of races. I think they had a couple of DNSs and DNFs as well. Can't remember all the details, but yeah, Max seems to be a lot happier with these upgrades and changes. So combination of upgrades that we're ready now and not at the start of the season, and obviously the changes that they made over the break there in terms of power consumption and ratio and clipping and all that kind of stuff. So the mix of that seems to have worked well for Red Bull, particularly for Max. yeah, and he had his nice little spin at the start. It looked like something from Tokyo Drift or one of those movies. And I thought somebody had clipped the back of him, but when they showed the replay, he planted a bit too much, and yeah, that was all Max. But the recovery was a thing of beauty. It was like one of those guys you see doing donuts in the middle of an intersection with the hand on the steering wheel. One of these guys, but yeah, it was the recovery was. If nothing else happened in that race, I would have been happy just to see that.
Yeah, that was cool.
But yeah, a P5. Was it P5 you finished? And
P5.
yeah. The call for the early pit stop, I think, was 6 or 7 laps in.
Yeah,
probably a bit too early. I think it was only Bottas did the same, and Cadillac are a new team, not sure who their strategists are, but they're obviously having a different race to the guys at the front. And if you see Red Bull doing the same thing, you kind of have to call it into question, I think. So yeah, probably too early on that. Could have waited, might have held better track position, but definite progress for the car. Definite progress for Max. He seems happier. Hopefully no more retirement talk out of him. And I don't want to bring up the ghost of the Red Bull second seat, but I just hope it isn't happening to Isaac Hajar, because he's a good race driver, and I'd hate to see another good driver get chewed up and spat out like Gasly and
was it
Albon?
Yeah,
these kind of he's a bit behind him. Half a second here and there, but that can be a lot in F1. So
yeah,
he's had a little bit of bad luck. I think he finished in the top 10 in China. I think he got a P7 or P8, so he has some points on the board, and that was that looked like good progress. But he's kind of dropped off a little bit since then. Just outside the points in the sprint in P9, and you're like, oh, close, but obviously no cigar. And then, yeah, he screwed it up in the race. Like, obviously, he had to start the back, I think, because of some issue. Can't remember exactly what it was, but they had to change something, or there was some infringement. Was it the baseboard? I think they measured the baseboard. Yeah. So, yeah, he was on the back foot from the start, but I think he was starting to carve his way up nice through the pack. And, little bit of concentration lost, split second, and yeah, those walls around Miami will kill you. And he just clipped it, and yeah, he lost it, and you could see his frustration. It's nice to see a little bit of emotion from drivers. He was pissed with himself, right? He was he knew he screwed it up. He was in a very good position with an upgraded car. He had a bit of pace around those in the pack he was kind of cutting through. So this could have been the race to really launch his season, and he binned it into a wall. So going to another street track kind of in Montreal, and is it Monaco after that? So these are tracks that can be unforgiving with little lapse of concentration. You'll lose it pretty quickly. So he's got a couple of tough races coming up, and I think he has to start scoring points before the media get on his back. And you don't want to see that, because I think he's a really good driver. So, yeah, hopefully better things to come from him. He's probably the best second seat driver they've had in a little while anyway. So, yeah, fingers crossed for him that he can start to turn his season around. But I think there's better management there now in terms of, Mecky's seems to be a bit of a camera influence in the team. They've got rid of Helmut Marko, who was just a complete lunatic. So I think these younger drivers maybe get a little bit more of a chance than they did previously. So Red Bull are off the pace in terms of the rest. They're well behind in terms of points, but the car is starting to look good. So let's see what they can do.
Two things real quick. First of all, now this is regardless of Isaac Hajar binning it into a wall. But you're talking there about like tracks like Montreal and Monaco and stuff like that. God help us when we get to Madrid, because that is going to be carnage. There is, like, I am calling it here now, there is going to be multiple safety cars during that race. I don't know if you guys have actually seen the layout of Madrid. Like, yeah, there's some long sort of corners and, you know, fast corners and stuff like that, but there's a lot of tight little sort of I'm going to kill your Formula One tight corners that I think
have they actually finished the track? Because I saw pictures there like a week or two ago, and like they were still laying asphalt and you know, putting down track, and it looked like might be touch and go.
Well, it's still on the calendar for this season, so you know, I assume they're pretty much just going to pull what they did in Vegas and just absolutely just go gun ho for the next couple of weeks to get that track finished. But there is going to be a good few crashes in that race, because, oh my God, if you haven't seen just like some of the, like, I know obviously I think it was like Assetto Corsa that they used for the actual visualization of this. But this was done by the official, I think it was F1 or Madrid company circuit, whatever, who looks after the track. They did a virtual sort of thing around that track in Assetto Corsa. And there is just going to be so many killed F1 cars. There's going to be so many people sent to the Shadow Realm in that race. I'm looking forward to it. But on the second point that I was going to quickly mention there, just going back to, you know, talking about the curse of the Red Bull seat, we thought we were finished with talking about that when it came to Isaac Hadjar, because honestly, I really believe that he is the best choice and he's the best driver for that seat right now. And I really hope that we don't have this back and forward thing again that we had over the past God knows how many years with the train of drivers that have been in that second seat. But one of the things that you mentioned there, just like obviously when it comes to his performance, he's a really good driver. I mean, Checo Perez at his best in Red Bull, I mean, he was up there on the podium with Max. Like, I know, again, yeah, completely different set of regulations, but in terms of, you're saying like, oh yeah, he might be a half a second there or a second there off to Max or whatever. I mean, there was a lot of races that we've seen in 2022 and 2023 where Perez was on the podium with Max consistently, you know? So I still feel it's very early days to say his seat is secured at Red Bull, because a lot can happen in a season, because at the end of the day, he might be the nicest guy and he might get on really well with all the organization and the people in the pit lane and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if he's not delivering points, they're going to look elsewhere, you know, and hopefully he isn't a victim of that second seat. But obviously, there's a lot of races to go, so time will tell when it comes to Hadjar, and I really hope it doesn't happen to him. I'd love to see him stay there at Red Bull. But before we wrap up, we're not going to talk about them in detail. I just wanted to throw it out there because for you guys, I know you are a massive fan of this team, but a special mention to Williams. They managed to finish double points this weekend.
Top 10, baby. Woohoo!
Sainz and Albon picking up some points, finishing in P9 and 10 there, picking up 3 points for Williams, which was great. Now, I can't remember exactly what they finished in the sprint race. As I said, we're not going to get into it, but I just wanted to say a quick little special mention about Williams there. But anyway, folks, that was the Miami GP, and also as well a brief little discussion about the sprint race. It was chaotic. It was brilliant. It was just great to have Formula One back, and what a way to have it back with what happened in Miami. But your top 10 finishers for the Miami GP: Kimi Antonelli coming in there in P1, Norris in P2, we had Piastri in P3, Russell in P4, Verstappen in P5, Hamilton in P6, Colapinto in P7, Leclerc in P8 because of that 20-second time penalty, Sainz in P9, and Albon wrapping it up there with the final bout of points in P10. Also as well, we had 4 DNFs. We had Hadjar, obviously into the wall. We had Gasly and Lawson, that whole incident, Lawson, T-Bone and Gasly, and both cars were out. And then Hulkenberg was also a DNF. He definitely had a good few issues with that car over the weekend, and especially even when it came to the sprint race as well. So hopefully not too many issues for Audi going forward. It'd be nice to just see some good consistency with Bortoleto and Hulkenberg there. It was really exciting to see Audi come into the sport now for this season. So hopefully they can get rid of those gremlins that are in that car at the moment. But moving on to our next segment, our driver of the day, our dick of the day, and our loser of the day. Damien, who was your driver of the day, dick of the day, and loser of the day?
Driver of the day, I had Colapinto. Alpine, just rubbish over the past number of years. They had tractors and trolleys for cars, and to change to Mercedes, and maybe this chassis as well seems to be a good one. Yeah, getting in the points consistently is where those teams need to be. And I think Gasly's had a few good races, and Colapinto, this has probably been his best weekend as an F1 driver. So yeah, getting that car into, I think it was P7, that's incredible. So yeah, driver of the day for me was Colapinto. Obviously a few other good shouts from the top teams, but that's expected. D&cK of the day, I had Charles Leclerc.
Right.
Yeah, his antics at the end with his little crash, and he was floating all over the place. And I was like, yeah, just pull the car over to the side. If your car's binned, obviously he tries to get it home because he's a few corners away, but a little bit of a dick move to do that. But yeah, there wasn't really too many candidates, and that was the only thing that really kind of jumped out at me. I think the Colapinto and Lawson incidents were, racing incidents, or weren't on purpose, so I couldn't really give it to them.
I don't know if that really warrants being a dick now, to be fair. He was just
driving around the track with a wheel falling off, like that's...
Well, technically his wheel didn't fall off. It hadn't fallen off. It was just he couldn't turn the wheel properly.
Yeah. Not being able to turn a car and driving it on the track, that's a bit of a dick move, so...
I mean, if there's like 20 seconds between you and the driver behind you, I mean, you got plenty of space.
But there wasn't. They were right beside each other.
I mean, I would have thrown Colapinto in there as the dick.
My loser is George Russell. Pressure is on him big time now, and he lost out this race. I think this was the race where Kimi had the most pressure on him, because McLaren were catching up, Ferrari obviously are decent, and Red Bull are kind of in and back in the game as well. So he had a lot more close racing, he had a lot more competition, and he still came out on top. And George Russell was, Miami doesn't suit him. He said he doesn't like the track, and he was half a second off Kimi all weekend. And yeah, that's not good enough from somebody who's putting their hand up to want to be a world champion. So yeah, big loss this weekend for him in terms of his reputation, I think.
Yeah, definitely just a wannabe. That's all that he is. Isidro, who is your driver of the day, your dick of the day, and loser of the day?
Well, loser of the day would be Pierre Gasly. He was just walking around, not expecting a technical failure from Lawson, and suddenly he's spinning. But yeah, tough luck. So yeah, but for me, loser of the day would be Pierre Gasly. D&cK of the day, like Damien was saying, Leclerc. He kind of he did that to himself, and he could just park the car and that's it. It was what would happen if a wheel came off, even though he was a couple turns away from the finish line. So yeah, it was a bit of a dick move, driving around with the car, not safe to be driven in a racetrack. So
you leave my Charles alone, guys. You leave him alone. You leave
take those blinkers off, Harrison.
And the Zitro, who's your driver today?
And finally, for draft of the day, I'm gonna go with the midfield team. I'm gonna say with the former WDC Max Verstappen. He did his best with those tires, and he went home with a P5. So for a midfield team and the former driver, world championship winner driver, I think he deserves the prize from me.
Yeah. No, I agree. Not with the Charles bashing here. I don't agree with that, guys. But my drive of the day, I'm giving that to Lando Norris. I know, kind of out of the blue, people are probably thinking, what? Lando Norris? Look, he won the sprint race. He had amazing pace. He had a great race in the Grand Prix. He tried to put it to Kimi. It was just great to see the upgrades that McLaren had brought, and to actually utilize that performance that the car had and still actually get up there and score a massive amount of points. I'm giving it to Lando. I'm giving it to him. I would have, this might be absolutely shocking as well, I could have given it to Piastri, but given it to Norris instead.
I think Norris lacked the killer instinct to go for Kimi.
Yes. That's why I said earlier on, I feel like he played it a little bit too safe. I feel if it was Piastri up there, I think he would have put it to Kimi and there would have been some good battles there for P1. But
now is the time to risk, because there's still plenty of races. You get safe when you have enough points and want to get, but now you just go for the kill.
Exactly. Like a shark, Isidro, like a shark. But my dick of the day, and it's going to come as no surprise because I just don't like him at all, Colapinto. I'm giving it to Colapinto. I've said it before. I just think, first of all, that whole incident with Hamilton, I thought that was a dick move. I think he should have gotten a penalty. I know I said earlier on that I was using him as an example, that Lawson shouldn't get a penalty. I know it sounds kind of contradictory there, but I honestly believe Colapinto should have gotten a penalty for that. I think that was a dick move. He took off Sir Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari. He threw it, like, he absolutely destroyed it. And how dare he ruin Sir Lewis Hamilton's car? What a dick.
I like the respect.
Yes. But my loser of the day, I'm giving it to Gasly as well, as Isidro. I'm exactly the same thing. He was just driving along. He was doing his thing. He was trying to put in a good race. He had a great car that he had underneath him, and he was putting in some good performance. And then out of nowhere, Liam Lawson, boom, you're gone off to the shadow realm. Like, that car completely flipped 180 degrees or 360, I think. Yeah, it completely flipped back around. He had no idea what was going on and just, his race gone. So yeah, I'm giving it to probably Alpine, if you want to sort of say, because like Alpine fans around the world are probably, jumping for joy that they actually have a good car that can get points this season, but then to see Gasly getting completely T-boned and they're just like, oh shit, here we go again. But I'm giving it to Gasly. Isidro, you've got a follow-up point?
Not related with the competition, but just when he said about spinning, the way that Max spinned in turn 2.
Yeah.
And this weekend Red Bull was using that special wing thing. Maybe it had a little button on the steering, and you press the button to rotate the wing instead of rotate the car itself. Maybe it was something like that.
He's driving
the wrong button.
He's driving Christian Bale's Batmobile from The Dark Knight, or no, the bike where the wheels just turn around instead. All of this sort of, technology stuff that they're putting into the cars where it makes them flip around and stuff, they need to get rid of it because this is causing too many issues. But look, anyway, chaps, moving on to our Fantasy League and our predictions game. Now, finally, I know obviously in Suzuka, the Fantasy League site was down, so unfortunately we couldn't actually give the results of the Fantasy League in our last episode, but obviously there was a 4-week break, so obviously it was going to be a case that was back up and running, and it is. So as you can see, and I'll bring it up here on screen for those who are watching this over on YouTube, but at the moment, and we're going to call out the top 5 for this, because it's been 4 weeks, so might as well call out the top 5 for the Fantasy League. Emphasis on top 5, just throwing that out there. Top 5. But anyway, in P1 we have no, Damien, we'll come to you in a second. Okay, we'll come to you in a second.
Top 5 for Miami, please, first.
No, we're going to go top 5. We're not going into too much detail here, Damien. At the moment, we have Whip Verstappen currently in P1 on 1,274 points. We have Saptarshi F3 in P2 on 1,201. We have Realm Pago, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, Realm Pago Marquis, I don't know how to pronounce that second name, I do apologise, in P3 on 1,151. We've got Tire Shredder number 1, not Tire Shredder number 2, but Tire Shredder number 1 in P4 on 1,104 points. And then in P5, just insert Superman cape on my back here. In P5, we've got Expecto Patronus AMG Formula 1 team, myself, in P5 on 1,049 points. And we're going to wrap it up there and move it on to our predictions game.
Now do Miami results where you finished second bottom. Oh my God. You
No.
finished top.
No.
Who was the best in Miami?
We don't have the time, Damien. We don't have the time, David. We're moving on. We're talking about the overall board, top 5, and we're leaving it at that. Okay, we're moving on.
No results. No results from the week, and then the overall board. No.
No, we don't work that way, Damien. It's just whoever gets points, that's it. Whatever position that you're in, that's the result. That's it. That's exactly what it is. Just remember P5, and just you keep that seat warm down there in P9. But anyway, moving on to our predictions game. Now, obviously, it's been a while since we discussed our predictions and all this kind of stuff for Miami. But Dave, he had Leclerc in P1, Hamilton in P2. He had Russell in P3. He also had Kimi to DNF. And as a surprise, he had Hadjar in the top 10. So overall, Dave got 0 points coming out of Miami. Definitely not a good weekend for Dave. Isidro, what were your predictions for Miami?
Oh, so not good for me. I had Russell P1, Kimi P2, and Leclerc P3. My faith in Ferrari is gone.
Yes.
Then I had Alonso DNF and had Colapinto inside top 10. So Colapinto didn't disappoint, of course.
Yeah, we definitely missed out big time when it came to that Aston Martin prediction, because you had Alonso to DNF and I had Stroll to DNF, and I think our reasoning behind this was that, well, one of them is going to DNF, so one of us, it's gonna happen. And out of nowhere, even though the car is still shite, they managed to finish.
Less shite.
Yes, they were less shite than last time, which is good in Aston Martin's eyes, But yeah, I had Kimi in... Well, sorry, no, just to go back there. Isidro, you got 1 point overall. Yeah. But it's not all bad news. But yeah, I had Kimi in P1, so yes, I got a point. And that was literally my only point, because I had Russell in P2, Charles in P3, I had Stroll to DNF, and then I had Bortoletto inside the top 10. So that was 1 point overall. Damien, go on. Give us your predictions.
Well, between the actual fantasy game itself, which I finished top of for the Miami
This is
week,
predictions.
and our predictions game, it was a great weekend. So I had Kimi with P1 for 1 point there, and then I had Piastri and Russell in P2 and P3 for 0 for that. Then I had Ocon outside the top 10, which gave me another point. And then I had Hadjar inside the top 10. And the only thing he was inside was the wall in Miami. But so that gave me 2 points for this week. Winner for this week in both fantasy competitions. So yeah, I'm going to go out and have a beer, buy myself a nice meal, because top class performance this weekend.
You go out and have yourself a beer there by yourself.
Happily. I like a bit of peace and quiet.
No. Oh, well, look, we'll see what happens. Well, not next weekend, because it's 2 weeks before we get to Canada again. But we'll see what happens in Canada. But overall, though, because I'd wipe that smile off your face very quickly, because right now, the way it's working in the table of predictions points, we have Isidro in 7 points Sorry, I was completely wrong way of saying that. We have Isidro with 7 points in P1.
Nice.
And then we have joint second with Dave and Damien, who was last year's, not this year's, totally last year, in the past history, last year's world champion. Last year. And still in P9 in the fantasy league. In joint second with Dave, and then myself, just keeping the seat warm at the moment for whoever's going to replace me in P last. I have 4 points at the moment. It hasn't been a great weekend for me overall. But obviously, look, Canada, that's in a couple of weeks' time. We need to get our predictions in for that. Now, Dave, obviously, he'll send us in his predictions, and we'll get that close near the time. But Isidro, what are your predictions for Canada?
So for Canada, I have Kimi P1, Norris P2, and Russell P3. Interesting.
Very, very, very interesting. Definitely keeping with the stay away from Ferrari prediction.
Oh, definitely.
And then who do you have as your flop and surprise?
I have Colapinto outside top 10 and Berman inside top 10.
Right. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I think that, well, actually, that is very interesting, because it looks like a complete copy of what I'd put in there. You know, Isidro, like, it's happened in the past. It's not a good idea to copy what I do. Sometimes it can pay off, but it's completely 50-50. Well, actually, no, it's more so 90-10 most of the time. 10% I can actually win. I can actually get a good amount of points, but 90% of the time, no, it's not good. But anyway, look, my predictions, I have Kimi in P1, Piastri in P2. Ooh, who had Piastri in P2? And then Charles in P3. I'm just holding on hope. This is at the point after Canada. It's usually by Canada when I give up hope of Ferrari, because as I said, Canada has been good to Ferrari in the past, but it's usually after Canada, if they don't really do anything, then I'm like, right guys, just go back into the cave. That's it. Good luck. So yeah, Charles in P3. And then for my flop, I have Colapinto outside the top 10 and Berman inside the top 10. And Damien, what are your predictions?
I have P1 for Kimi, P2 for Lando, and P3 for George Russell.
Oh, nice.
My flop will be Albon outside the top 10. Great weekend for Williams just gone, but you know, they have a little bit of pace back, but you know, I think next race might suit maybe Haas a little bit more, so that's why I have Berman inside the top 10 for my surprise then.
Right. Very, very interesting. Well, we'll see how that pays off for you in a couple of weeks' time. And yeah, look, we have another, I know obviously we've had a lot of breaks now between, you know, the last race in Miami and now we've got this and Canada, but it'll give you enough time to really analyze your fantasy predictions and try and get onto my level. You know, hopefully you can fight on my, you know, top 5 level by the time we get to Canada.
Well, if I do another week like last week, I'll take you over pretty quickly. So yeah, I think it should be okay for next week around when you'll be eating some humble pie.
Nah, not happening. Not happening. But anyway, look, chaps, thank you as always for taking time out of your busy days to talk about Formula One. It's definitely been a while. I know we've missed it on our screens. I have to dust off some of the cobwebs, not only on the old computer here, but also on the face and the beard and the vocal cords. Because it's been a while, we haven't spoken about it. But yes, thank you so much, and it was a blast as always talking to you.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
Awesome. Well, folks, listen, if you did enjoy today's episode, as always, definitely make sure to hit that like button, subscribe button, and follow button, whatever platform you're listening to. Definitely show us some support if you do enjoy it. And of course, as always, thank you so much to all of our players in our fantasy league. We look forward to seeing how the table turns out when we get to Canada. But yes, hopefully you all did enjoy it. And tell us your thoughts on the Miami weekend. What did you think on our takes on all the issues and the incidents and all of our takes on all of the teams this weekend? Were we completely wrong? Did we get it correct? Did we get it accurate? Just tell us your thoughts below in the comment section, wherever you're listening to this. But as always, until next time, enjoy whatever day you're listening to this episode on. But until next time, we will see you all for the Canadian GP. Adios.